the relentless, I would say, um, backing and support which you provided to this partnership,
Ji.
starting from 15th of May. I think that's when the first webinar was held post opening up. And unfortunately, post opening up, there were industrial incidents which also started happening. One of the key ones was the LG Chem accident on the 7th of May 2020. And I think since then, we started propagating the Government of India's guidelines of restarting of industries. We even went ahead with building better capacities and resilience amongst the industries, communities, other stakeholders also. And I think we haven't looked back ever since. And this partnership has only grown with every passing day. Um, we are touching the 150 marks, sir. So I think we'll give a few maybe seconds more, maybe a couple of minutes, if you allow, for people to join, so that
Okay.
we can witness one of the most important, I would say, lectures of this entire 3-day series, where Dr. Gupta will be setting the context, setting the perspective. We call it the theme lecture, but there is a reason why we have this theme lecture right at the beginning of this online training program, because we want what Dr. Gupta strongly believes in, that there should be a tone which needs to be set. The expectations amongst the participants who are joining us um, from different parts of the country, and some of them from neighboring countries as well, I think are really now, this is the fifth program, and they really are looking forward to more knowledge, more insights on the subject of industrial safety. And I think the number of registrations which we have for all the e-conclaves and the OTPs, we have some, that is a testimony of the sort of outreach we've had, the quality which we provide. I think Sanjeev is also here, my colleague Sanjeev, Akhil Gupta, Mainak Majumdar, Varun Sharma, and of course, sir, from your team, Harshit has been, a key force behind, organizing and, putting those small pieces in places which actually now when we start, it looks all beautiful and successful. But I think there's a lot of effort which goes behind this. And I must tell all the participants who are joining with us at this moment, online training and online initiatives, although this, a lot of general opinion was it's an easy concept, sitting in the comfort of your homes or offices, one can witness the best of the best speakers. I know that is the advantage, but the technical effort which goes behind organizing something like this every time, every few days, I think is a mammoth effort, and the credit goes to the entire team, which is behind the scenes working relentlessly to make sure we have everything in place at the right time. In fact, we've had support from National Disaster Management Authority also, thanks to NIDM. This partnership between FICCI and NIDM has gone to that level where other stakeholders in the ecosystem, they are more than welcoming to whatever new initiative we come out with as partners. And I think uh, majority of the credit goes to the gentleman who's on the screen, Dr. Anil Kumar Gupta. I think thank you so much for your seamless and unwavering support. I must thank you from the bottom of my heart. And I think although I'm buying time, honestly, also to make more people join us so that they don't miss even a line of your lead lecture. And I'm sure they would only thank me later in retrospect that I let them join in, and I could the beginning of this. So I would quickly inform the participant that we'll have the lead lecture by Dr. Gupta, and followed by this lead lecture, once everyone is in the right frame of mind of what they should expect in the coming 3 days. We'll have a very important session, which is the inaugural session, which would be attended by, and this OTP will be formally inaugurated by the Executive Director of National Institute of Disaster Management, Major General M.K. Bindal, and we'll have keynote address and special remarks from Lieutenant General Dr. J.R. Bhardwaj, who is the chairman of FICCI CIDM board and also the former founding member of National Disaster Management Authority, whom Dr. Gupta very fondly calls as the Bhishma Pitama of industrial safety and industrial disaster management. So, Dr. Saab, we are almost at 200. So, if you allow, I would should I initiate the proceedings? Thank you so much,
yes,
and thank you, sir. And on that note, a very warm welcome again. A very good afternoon to one and all who have taken this effort of joining us today for this very important online training program on industrial safety, planning and disaster resilience, jointly been organized by the National Institute of Disaster Management, Ministry of Home Affairs, and FICCI. This is the 5th OTP in the series. Ladies and gentlemen, as a slide in the very beginning showed that all participants have to attend all the 3 days, and once you do that, you qualify for a certificate of the program, which would be issued in your name. We would be sharing all the presentations, which would be given by the esteemed experts, along with your certificates, in 2 to 3 weeks of time after the conclusion of this OTP. So patiently you should, because we compile all the information and we put that into a docket before we send it across. So please expect, please kindly give us time, about 2 weeks time to compile all of that together. Before I formally request Dr. Anil Kumar Gupta, who is the professor and head of ECDRM at NIDM, for his lecture, I would like to thank all my colleagues at FICCI, Akhil Gupta, Sanjeev Kumar, Mainak Majumdar, Varun Sharma, Deepak Sharma as well, and Harshit Sharma from NIDM for all the efforts being put in behind these 3 days of OTP. As Dr. Gupta has asked us to begin the proceedings, I would like to introduce the audience. A brief introduce Dr. Anil Gupta. A few words on his introduction. Dr. Anil Kumar Gupta is a resilience and sustainability strategist who has worked for government, industry, and academia for over 25 long years. Presently, he is a professor at India's National Institute of Disaster Management, which is a Ministry of Home Affairs institute. He has steered several international and national projects of policy planning and research, and published over 25 books and 70 papers. He is WMO expert, team member on climate statement, South Asia Core Group member of IUCN-CEM, Vice Chair of Association of Occupational and Environment Health, and editor of Springer Nature Book Series on Disaster Resilience. In the past, he has worked for CSIR, NEERI, GMI Bhopal, NMDC, SciCon, and various state governments and universities. I think the introduction is we've got so much to say. We know so much about you, Dr. Saab, and I think you're a popular and an established personality in this area of industrial safety. I would now request you to please take over for your lead lecture on the subject. Over to you, Dr. Gupta.
Thank you, Ruab, and the entire team from FICCI. After my lecture, Lieutenant General Bhardwaj and ED and IDM will also join and will grace the inaugural session. They will address all the gathering. And I am very happy to join and speak in the 5th in the series, this online training program, jointly with FICCI. And I compliment Ruab, Mr. Sanjeev, Akhil, Mainak, and many more the entire IT team and the team from an IDM side for this continued and concerted effort to make industrial safety and resilience a popular subject. Because for quite a long time, the industrial disasters have been dealt in a little isolated manner. So now this has been an effort to mainstream, and that is the reason we had a series of webinars and now a series that we are in the new normal, and the impact of coronavirus pandemic has been there. That is the reason we have started this online series. Maybe we are expecting that this period will be over soon, and we will also be able to hold some face-to-face workshop or training program where we would also have the opportunity to meet with participants and other resource persons in person. So we are also looking for that. Looking to this particular program that is starting from today. In the series, as we had been discussing a number of technical dimensions, also legal issues associated with the in the industrial safety and disaster management. Now we felt it is worthwhile to discuss about the planning and management related issues, because the management within industry and corporate system has great role to play, and planning is fundamental, because we often discuss about any intervention done in a planned way and in an unplanned way. What is the difference and what are the benefits? So here also, whenever anything happens that lead to an emergency situation, we all often try to contain that emergency situation or address that kind of accidental scenario. But when we are more prepared, and when we are prepared in a very systematic and prudent way, our resources are optimized, our wastage is minimized, wastage in terms of resources, wastage in terms of time, wastage in terms of money, and the success rate is increased. So therefore we have been discussing that whatever lessons are there with us about various aspects of industrial safety and industrial disaster management, those should be integrated into the planning process. And that is the reason we say that the planning should also be revisited, and plan should be revised and updated regularly. It is not that we prepared a plan 10 years back and okay, it is the same industry, so let us have the same plan. No, there will be so many dimensions or so many factors which will keep on changing. That is the reason we say that a significant aspect of risk is highly dynamic. For example, if weather patterns change, many times in the risk assessment we take cognizance of the wind speed, and then sometimes we find that now the predominant wind is a little different. So when the predominant wind direction is changing, certainly the plume structure will change, and the flow of the pollutants will change, and contaminants will change. So exposure of the people in that case will change. So that is the reason we have to keep on updating these kind of plannings also. And I was also just reading in the morning that small incidents actually contribute to making of a major incident. So that is also important, that how we take care of small things in our premises, small things in our industry, that can lead to some kind of harm. And then if we are taking care of those, we can protect ourselves from a major mishap or disaster. So I have brought a PowerPoint presentation also. So I will be sharing a PowerPoint so that I can make a more structured discussion. Is my PowerPoint visible, Sanjeev? Is my PowerPoint visible?
It is.
Yes,
It is.
sir. Yes, sir. We can see it.
Yeah. Thank you. So I have chosen a topic more related with a broad concept of business resilience and business sustainability, because industrial disasters are kind of a one key dimension, and within the business management framework, that in other words we also sometimes say that industrial engineering, as industrial engineering and business management has lot of kind of a overlap. So why we look at the industrial accident management, industrial disaster risk management from the business resilience perspective? Because this coronavirus pandemic of 10 months has really given us great lesson. And because of this disaster, because coronavirus pandemic has been dealt as a disaster, it was a disaster, in fact, global disaster. It has caused severe disruption to our production system, supply chain, and business systems. And that is the lesson, that how we start looking at disasters as an impediment to businesses. So that is a new lesson. This is just a picture to share with you. A resource book on chemical industrial disaster management has been released in Orissa during a few years back, and we can see Mr. Dash, who has been next to late Dr. Kalam. He is the next missile man. So the new concept in disaster management has undergone a kind of a paradigm shift, because for quite a long time our focus within the industrial disaster management has been more on emergency response preparedness. That is the reason we used to say that on-site emergency plan and off-site emergency plan. So now that is a kind of a paradigm shift, that we are moving towards a more holistic approach rather than only looking at disaster response. And why we are talking for advocating that? Because actually the emergency response is often aimed at addressing the residual risk, the risk that we cannot reduce, or risk that we cannot minimize by our technical and management interventions. So when at the same time the emergency response cannot be phased out, it is always required, because risk cannot be brought to zero. So how do we achieve the goal of zero tolerance? So that is very important, that we need to have emergency response and effective emergency response coordination in place. But much has to be done before emergency arises, or we call it a disaster, a pre-disaster phase, before a disaster takes place. And in fact, the aim is that do not let the disaster to happen. So what is important there? That is actually the phase where we actually try to understand the risk. So the period of risk assessment, period of planning, period of prevention, mitigation, period of effective governance. Like the industry also has to lot of coordination with civil government, or the district administration, or the local administration, like with the trade unions, and with the offsite communities. Then also evaluation and monitoring. So these kind of things which are the more management centric, but those cannot be done during the emergency phase, because during emergencies it is the operation centric, and we need to have effective coordination. That is the most important thing. So this is a paradigm shift, that now we are trying to give equal, or rather even a little more focus on risk management rather than only emergency response. Now looking at the disasters, that for quite a long time we have been saying that the disasters in industries are caused by primarily 3 or 4 types, like fire and explosion, where actually when we conduct any risk assessment, we use Dow and Mound Index. So that kind of thing begins with fire and explosion risk analysis, or hazard analysis. But toxic release, like we recently witnessed in Visakhapatnam incident also, and in fact the first and the biggest industrial accident of the history, that was the Bhopal disaster, took place in India. So we have a lot of lessons, not only for India but for the entire world. Then corrosion is also another kind of a factor that can lead to industrial accident. And now we have also added radioactivity. So these kind of dimensions are there. But besides that, there are other dimensions of technical as well as natural factors, which are also the contributing factors, are the trigger factors for industrial accidents, are the disasters within industries, like mechanical mishaps or failures, or electrical accidents that can lead to even fire. Then earthquake, flooding, cyclone, landslides. We recall of the China earthquake that has affected a lot of chemical storages. Even Bhuj earthquake affected a lot of chemical storages. The Orissa super cyclone affected a lot of hazardous chemicals that has been leaked and floated on the sea floor. And then landslides can affect our pipelines. Then heat wave calls us for changing our threshold values, because our safety systems are designed for a particular kind of temperature. Then certainly fire any other fire, not industrial, non-industrial fire can create risk for industries, because if that takes place in the premises. Then civil accidents are conflicts, and even there is a possibility that a terrorism attack can target an industrial operation or can target a hazardous material that is being carried, transported within a mobile unit like vessel, tanker, or whatever. So as we see that the transport of hazardous goods is also one of the major contributor to these risks. Now, many times we talk of trigger events, and when we discuss about trigger events, so I recall someone quoted a simple story in Hindi that a journalist was in a habit of bringing large stories. Whenever he used to go to cover some incident, he used to come with the large incident. Then editor told him that you should edit it yourself, and you should write as minimum as possible, and rest you leave to the reader, so that they can understand what will happen next. So next time he came with a story, and he wrote that the operator use a matchstick to see the level of petrol in the petrol tank. Then he told that rest of the things will be understood by the readers themselves. So I am just joking. It is just that how we define the trigger event basically. So always, despite of having the huge inventory of hazardous materials, there is always some kind of trigger event is required. So that in the risk assessment we also say that initiating event. So the initiating event, some examples, for example, process or system storage system failure, sometimes even the safety system failures.
I think there is a technical issue at Dr. Gupta's end. I'm sure it will be resolved momentarily. Please bear with us. We have over 300 participants with us now, which is a very encouraging number. Thank you so much, all the participants, for joining us today, this afternoon.
Picture is to indicate that there are two ways of exposure of human beings. One is direct exposure of human and other life forms like human and livestock, but the chemical disaster can also contaminate the geological and ecological environment, water bodies and atmosphere, and then ultimately the human and other life forms are getting affected, even by affecting property also, or it can also affect your so we say that it affects men and machine both. So here also it is important that for quite a long time we have been discussing about emergency response, and I still say that emergency response is one of the most important aspects of disaster risk management within industry. But this is also a fact that the emergency response is actually the last line of defense, and that is the reason. What are the previous two lines? So previous two lines are basically that how can we prevent the incident, and second is if the incident could not be prevented, how do we contain the event so that it doesn't lead to a major accident. So that is important dimension. And when we are talking of this, usually that the concept of industrial the disaster management in industry starts from the kind of a site risk assessment. So basically we usually look at the land use and environmental setting, because your physiographical features, your wind speed, wind direction, all these things, and hydrological regime, all these things play important role in your physical effect modeling for assessing the possible scenarios of accidents. So site risk assessment, what is this risk associated with that particular site, then hazard risk assessment, multi-hazard, because many times the natural and man-made factors can combine and cause some impact. Like if we recall the Fukushima incident, it was initially an earthquake that caused tsunami caused flooding led to a nuclear mishap in the plant. So a series of incidents. So many times I say that a boulder from the hilltop rolling down and hitting a pipeline that used to carry a hazardous material, making the hazardous material to flow to the nearby downstream lake and affecting the water supply of the city. So how many disasters are there, and can we call it a natural disaster or industrial disaster? So that is also the issue, that we actually cannot draw a line that what kind of disaster it is, and that is why there are a lot of possibilities that these kind of major disasters can lead to complex emergencies. And here we have used a term called MCA. MCA is basically like the black swan events, like the maximum credible accident scenarios. Maximum credible accidents are the accidents where the probability is very, very low, but that is still believed to be possible. And for that, actually, we talk of the consequence assessment. Impact is something, and consequence is actually the final result. Like if someone is exposed to a lethal substance or a poisonous substance, maybe it can affect your it can affect your lungs, it can affect your nervous system, and it can cause the nervous system to fail. But what is the final result? Maybe final result is death. So that is the consequence, and that is why what can be the final result or final scenario after a disaster incident takes place. So that kind of assessment is also important, and that actually takes into cognizance the vulnerability dimensions, that if the incident takes place during the daytime, how many people are there, how many people can be get exposed. If the same incident takes place during the night time, how many people will be there, because the vulnerability will be different. Even in the off-site area also, outside the industry also, the people walking on road will be lesser. So that kind of things also need to be taken into consideration. Then there is a kind of, this portion of the cycle is basically related with emergency planning, and then finally going to evaluation kind of things. Now this is a document where we work jointly with Ministry of Environment and Forest. As you must be aware that for chemical disasters, Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change is the nodal ministry. Though we have recently drafted a chemical safety regulation, once this chemical safety regulation is notified and it becomes a law, then the issue, the dimension related with hazardous substance management may be transferred to Department of Chemicals and Fertilizers under the Department of Chemical and Petrochemicals also. So this was a document based on the national consultation for preparing a national action plan on climate change, on national action plan on chemical disaster management. So a large number of states and large number of industries participated. This is the document that is available on our website also. This is an important aspect, that the categorization of land and basically the proper industrial siting, that is very important and fundamental dimension. And this is a GIS based approach, geographical information system based approach, for identifying suitable site for various kind of industries, like not only for industries but also for waste disposal, for new settlements, and for other land uses. So this has been an exercise that was published in an international journal called Journal of Colonial Production in the year 2002. Then it is very important that in most of the discussions we focus on technological dimensions in chemical disasters or industrial disasters, and many investigations also finally lead to finding fault with the technical mistakes or technical failures, or the design intent of some kind of equipment, or some kind of a machine tool or machine part. But if we look holistically, and if we really take an examination of the previous incidents globally within the industry, we find that their two dimensions are equally important. One is the process logical controls and technology, but also the personal and behavioral trainings, or personal and behavioral dimensions are very, very important. That is the reason in capacity building and training within the industry, particularly for safety and occupational health, these dimensions of mental health, dimensions of psychosocial issues, sound precision, decision making, and these kind of things, even employee welfare, these kind of things also are important contributions. Then I often discuss that if we really want major accidents to be avoided, we need to start counting our lower order risks. That is important, and that is the reason even near misses are very important, even lower than that. Small design intents, small operators mistakes, small misses or near misses all need to be analyzed, and their lessons need to be incorporated into our safety behavior and safety planning. And that is a very important dimension, because unsafe behaviors contribute to a large portion of the industrial the risk within the industrial settings. As within the industry or otherwise also, we define risk as a function of hazard into vulnerability divided by capacity. That is just to indicate that if we can increase the capacity, the vulnerability will be reduced. Or in other words, in order to increase the capacity, we have to reduce the vulnerability. Then risk assessment is something which I have been advocating, that risk assessment is a very important aspect of pre-disaster risk management strategy. And why risk assessment is important? Risk assessment is important because it helps in forecasting any unwanted situation. So many times we say that what will happen? So what will happen? What will happen if I do not eat 5 days? What will happen if I eat too much? What will happen if I jump from the 6th floor? So all these kind of things which are undesired situations, and what can be its effect, what can be its impact, and what can be its consequence. Like I can break my leg, but what will be the consequence? So these kind of things, like I can lose my job if I am a driver. So estimating damage potential of such situations, like if something will happen, how big can be the size of damage, and the size of damage even can be in terms of the monetary losses. Like we estimate that more than 5,000 crore was the loss to industry itself during the Jaipur fire a few years back. So and then also decision making to control such situations, that if many alternatives are available, which we can make a precise decisions, like which are the approaches that are more feasible, then evaluating effectiveness of the control measures, particularly for safety. Then this is the schematic that provides a glimpse of risk assessment and emergency planning steps. So emergency risk assessment is a systemic approach, and for that actually we have a number of steps, like description of the and definition of the system. Sometimes we break the industry into various segments for carrying out disaster risk assessment, or the accident risk assessment, then hazard identification, accident modeling or investigations, then frequency estimates, risk quantification. That is very important because that helps us understand the risk acceptance criteria. And basically we call it, when we generate quantitative information or some kind of indices, we say that quantitative risk assessment, but without without assigning any kind of quantitative value, it is called as qualitative assessment. And when we generate quantitative value, the quantitative values are usually generated in terms of probabilities, that this can happen or this cannot happen given a particular kind of act or the safety system. So a probabilistic risk assessment, we also say that PRA, probabilistic risk assessment, and that is an important dimension. Here the same is described in a different way, but here this is indicated that how an accident is assessed. So there are two ways, like we built upon a tree. So we say that the event tree, we create that if this happen, what will happen? If this happen, what will happen next? And then we arrive at a major incident. But on the other hand, when the accident has already taken place, so we do a kind of a forensic investigation. So in case of forensic investigation, we do fault tree development and we carry out fault tree analysis. So we say that, okay, this has happened. There are three possible reasons of this. Okay, what are the three possible reasons? What are their root causes? So we go back actually and then try to find out the final, the actual root cause. So that is also called as root cause analysis. And this is also showing that the possible kind of contributors, like release of chemicals through relief valve. So maybe a sabotage, maybe a human error, maybe a valve failure. So these kind of things are usually incorporated into in carrying out a fault tree analysis. And there is some repetition. So, but here it is also important that now actually we try to superimpose and we plot all this risk information on geographical information system platform or the land use platform, so that we understand that what can be the exposure of the offsite population, or the people who are living in the premises, within the premises, outside the premises, like offsite population, and that actually can give the information, risk information, risk quantified information in the form of maps. So looking at spatial information, but also non-spatial information. So that is important. As I referred to, the human factor, that is very, very important. And workers are risk and resources both for safety. So how they are risk? If the workers are less trained, their capacities are not enhanced, and their training is not up to mark, they are risk. But if they are well trained, and if they are in the correct state of mind, they are resources. So they have to know the risks to cope with. They should have a detailed written procedures, which can serve as a very important tool for the human resources. That can include step-by-step procedure. That can also include the language and expressions understood by the workers. Many times when I visited the industries, I found that even the material safety data sheet which are displayed has been displayed in a way that no one can read it, just typed and pasted on the wall. But I have also seen the industries where those are written in the local language, are the language that people can understand, and in the font size and in a color which are even the fluorescent colors that people the workers can read and frequently see them. Even by seeing they usually start grasping, and then they were already knowing when an incident took place. They were knowing that what is the antidote, what the first aid for particular kind of chemical. So that is also important. And this includes the training to handle the normal and abnormal situations both, like the shutdown procedures. So shutdown procedures normally, and shutdown procedures, a kind of a shutdown procedures in case of an emergency. There are some variations or some kind of differences. For example, different kind of sirens. So these things are also to be incorporated into the trainings. Now coming to various kind of risk assessments. Depending on the typology of risk assessment also varies. For example, safety risk, environmental risk, health risk, public welfare risk, ecological risk, financial risk, or socio-cultural risk. So many times the large industries are the more aware industries carry out more comprehensive risk assessment comprising various dimensions of risk, and that also helps not only prevention of accident but also safeguards. Other kind of financial risks also are helps in creating risk for the company's prestige. So risk assessment as part of the decision making process, that is very important, because risk assessment also helps your overall management effectiveness. So that is why I am advocating that the disaster resilience and risk assessment, safety, occupational health, this should also be integrated into the training and education of the business management in our business schools. I have been discussing with them that their managers should have at least some basic fundamental understanding of the disaster management within the industries and how the disasters can affect their business management, so that they are more prepared with a more sustainable approaches. Now, various mathematical models and physical effect models are also used. The listing, I would not read the list, but HAZOP is a World Bank promoted model for hazard analysis, but FETI, NFPA, these kind of models were also available. Like VEJAN was also there. VEJAN is World Bank supported hazard analysis model. Then effects is basically for physical effect modeling, safety, ARCI, and then CAMEO, and one model called Aloha. These are the models also commonly applied in India, and this model can also help us plot on the map. Like initially we were using TopoSheet, now we are using GIS-based map, and there is a software called Marplot. So maximum accident risk can be plotted on the maps. So these kind of things are make the things easily understandable by the managers, because managers need not be a technical expert. They may be coming from different domains, for example, economics, commerce, or other things. So when this risk scenario is presented in an easy form, they can understand and grasp, and that can help improve their decision making. Then strengths and weaknesses of the risk assessment tools. Currently in India, we have been trying to improve the risk assessment process, but there are certain weaknesses. For example, still we are using the British accident failure data. Now, particularly when we are promoting Make in India kind of things, and We started manufacturing so many things in India itself. We propose that we should have our own accident data and our own failure data that can help for more customized to Indian scenarios risk assessments. Then models also, Indianized models, then validation of models to be done in our own context, then professional expertise to use to carry out these kind of risk assessment and prepare disaster management plans. Then adaptability to varying conditions. For example, the same model, same kind of framework cannot necessarily work in the state of Tamil Nadu or Andhra, where the heat threshold is going very high, as compared to the state of Jammu Kashmir or state of Himachal Pradesh. So looking at the regional geography, regional ecological conditions, and also the type of industries, there has to be good level of adaptability. And then we also have to look at the inherent limitations of models so that those can be improved. Now coming to the broad framework that why corporate systems should look at industrial accidents and otherwise also overall disaster management framework as an important dimension of the business management practices, because industries also are an agglomerate of the infrastructure systems. We have a lot of machines, we have sometimes captive power plants also, we have storage units, we have transport units, we have sometimes the trolleys and so many other kind of things where a lot of infrastructure facilities are required. So in order to protect our businesses and infrastructure system, we need to put our disaster management system in place. So not necessarily that the disaster management plan be prepared only at the district level, but at the industrial cluster level, or the industry, particularly for the medium and big industry at the industrial level also, not only for emergency preparedness, but disaster prevention and mitigation is also required. And that is why we have been working, and recently we worked with Ministry of Environment and Forests to come out with a tool called disaster impact assessment. Like any kind of developmental process, is it going to improve, enhance the disaster resilience, or are going to create new disaster risk? So how can we integrate into the EIA process that is required for environmental clearance and also for auditing? And recently we have worked with some IITs to look at the life cycle assessment tool, that how life cycle assessment tool can help us understand more proactively the possible disaster risk in the next level of the processing of a particular good. Then maintenance and repair needs and costs to be incorporated in the project planning. Many times these costs are not included, and then we say that we don't have any money. The management will say that we don't have any money for these kind of things. Then anticipation and assessment of all possible scenarios. That is very important. That what can go wrong, and what can be the possible alternative scenarios. So these are important. And then looking at the capacity building and drawing lessons for it. Then herein that the integration of subset facilities, like how one sector or how one infrastructure will affect other infrastructure. So that is important. For example, the electric failure can affect your water supply. The electric failure can affect your health system, like the operation theaters. Like your transport system can affect your the health system functioning. So like in the civil system, the sectors are depending on each other. Within the industries also, there are so many things, like we have a power supply system, we have a water supply system for cooling, then we have a storage system, we have a processing system, we have a transport system, we have bagging. So how the failure of one will affect the failure of others. So that is important, and sometimes many industries are located nearby, and there can be a cascading effect. A disaster in one plant can trigger a series of disasters in other plants. So we say cascading effect or the domino effect. Then also important that whatever we are discussing about disaster management, it should not be only particular event oriented or managing a disaster event, but it should provide a more long-term adaptability or resilience. So that is important, and that is why now we are saying that we start looking at all possible scenarios or even unknown scenarios, and looking at the black swan events also. For example, this coronavirus pandemic has been one of the black swan events, which we never visualized that it will affect our industry like this thing. But it is also equally important that our effort of disaster resilience should not be only for our generation, because our generation is going to be replaced by the next generation very soon or very short. So we should also take care both the side within the society next the next generation of professionals who are going to phase out us within our industry and within our businesses also. So sustainability for their work also should be ensured, and therefore a long-term planning is required. And that is why I say that each and every industry, each and every business should now think of preparing a disaster management plan. This is a kind of a structure. I'm not going to read line by line. Then our recent experience that a range of disasters has been of concern in India. For example, in India, we have 33 type of disasters. Then tsunami we added, so 34 disasters. Then just 2015, we added heat wave also, because heat wave affected thousands of people. They lost their life because of heat wave. But heat wave is still considered as an issue of urban governance or rural governance. But how heat wave affects your industry, because in general also, no need to have a scientific data. During the summer time, when there is a heat wave conditions, we listen the news of a higher number of fire incidents within our urban systems, within the rural systems, and also within the industry. And there is a more requirement of water for cooling, and sometimes there is a conflict with the nearby community for want of water. And beside this, when the safety systems are designed for a particular temperature threshold, and now if the temperature is going to exceed that, how we are going to adapt to the new situations, and how we are going to relook at the safety systems within our industries. So similarly, a new type of disasters are now becoming more common, that we call it environmental emergencies. For example, in Delhi, we had to declare a health emergency because of air pollution. Sometimes it is possible that we have the water pollution emergency, maybe the contamination, chemical contamination or the biological contamination, and then we may have to face that kind of a situation, an industrial shutdown or conflict or these kind of things. So we have to start looking at that how environmental emergencies, or even given the climate emergencies like the freezing temperatures in our northeastern areas, or the states of Himachal, Uttarakhand, Kashmir, like this year also we faced, and how those industrial operations are going to be affected. So looking at the new possible risk scenarios, and what we also seen that because of the supply chain over-dependent supply chains, our businesses were hugely affected during this coronavirus pandemic period. So what are the market alternatives, or what are the supply alternatives available locally or nearby? And what are the possible alternatives or modifications possible in our process systems in case of such emergencies? So looking at the interdependencies, financial issues, laborers issues, so these kind of issues are also important. And as we realized recently that more than 70% of the industries did not have a concept of business continuity management. And the industries which had business continuity management system, they also seldom included disasters as a major impediment. So that is again a lesson that we have to start relooking at the business impact assessment process, where we include disasters and environmental emergencies. I would say even include health emergencies as an important impediment. For example, if some of your important operators and engineers are affected by a particular kind of a disease, and then it will affect your entire management functioning or the industrial functioning. So that is important. And in general, we find that in our industries, not only industries, otherwise also in the society, we find that there is a carelessness about safety and emergencies. Like still we find that people, at some occasions, people are fond of sitting and traveling on the roof of the train rather than inside the train and the roof of the bus. And these kind of scenarios also let us remind that sometimes we become so careless, and then mishaps also take place. And so these kind of things also let us know that how we need to popularize the safety audit, not only within the industrial units, but also at the overall business framework. That how even in the occupational environment, like we are sitting in our office. For example, your sales office is getting hit by any kind of disaster. It will affect the entire business, entire industry. So a broad framework of disaster management is appearing as a kind of a new opportunity, and therefore we will have to write the new narratives. And therefore, as I told, that we will need to relook at the methods of impact assessment and risk assessment. And the important dimension is looking at local self-reliance. That is important. Not looking always outside that the other experts will come and help us. How do we improve our expertise within our own localities, within our own network of institutions? And the purpose is this: a prudent, safety sound management believes in this. They ask this question, that I do not want any surprises. So if you are knowing all possible scenarios, you will certainly be prepared for the scenario. If you are not aware, you will not be prepared for that scenario. So that is important. And risk assessment is basically aimed at understanding all possible scenarios. And this is important. This is, although a little disconnected, but I thought of sharing with you the 2017 synthesis of a study of US, that for quite a long time, what we were thinking that we copy so-called developed countries, or we copy the mechanisms in developed countries. But this report says the American dream is over. So that is also a lesson, that it gives a forewarning that we should look at more customized approaches, more suitable for our type of industry, more suitable to our region, looking at their threshold, the ecological and social scenarios. And here it also says that how economics failed the economy. So that is also an important dimension, I think, a kind of a financial risk assessment also, that in fact, I believe that it is not very far that the concept of GDP is going to vanish. We may be devising some other alternatives of for monitoring mechanism, like the currency is also changing. Now we are talking of cryptocurrency, bitcoins and all. So similarly, I think the lot of changes in business is going to take place. But whatever changes take place, disaster resilience affecting business has been shown by the coronavirus pandemic, and we need to embrace this lesson in improving our business systems. These are some publications on various aspects of chemical disaster management. And this is a picture of our field visit. We took them to industry. Very shortly, we think that when we have a face-to-face program, we will take the participant to visit some industry also, so that they have a real feel. Sometimes even the industrial managers themselves, when they go with us in the industrial visit, they find that how do we look from a different perspective, because looking at our own industry as a child is something different, but looking at our own industry from the point of view of a teacher taking your examination is something different. So with this, I thank you very much, and I wish that we all should embrace the concept of safety and sustainability in our businesses and industries. And I also say that we need to have some kind of middle path. We need to promote materialistic growth. We need to have technological advances, but the human behavior will always remain a very, very important dimension. And for human behavior, a cool and calm and composed mind is important. And therefore, the mental and physical health of the workers is equally important. So with this, I thank you, all of you, and I go back to Ruab. Over to you, Ruab.
Thank you so much, so much, Dr. Gupta, for your very, very interesting presentation as always. At the cost of repetition, I would like to say that, whenever you're making a presentation, I make it a point that I note down those important points. And honestly, in the last 4-5 times I've heard you, every time I hear something new and I note down something new. And I think your focus on safety and sustainability is the core. And I think this is where the practical aspect of your presentation I want to highlight. And I think something, we have almost 400 participants with us right now.
Great.
This is you apply on risk assessment and emergency planning steps. I think and the human behavior, because every human who is working in a facility, unless it is a very small chance that, or a minuscule chance, it's a sabotage. But all human behaviors, or all humans who are involved in an operation, have good intent. They have all good intent. They would want the best for their organization, yes, and also for their own self, because self-safety triggers the organizational safety also. I think everyone wants to remain safe. And I think the intent is good, but sometimes, as you said, there are certain domino effects or cascading effects of certain incidents which are beyond human control. I think planning, assessing those risks and planning for those risks is the key. And I think that comes up so very well in your presentation. I must congratulate you for that.
Thank you.
And your mention on the black swan events, I think, and you also somewhere touched upon that it's black swan events have a, it's like seeing the glass is half full or half empty. There are distress. There is definitely a distress in certain cases, but there are so many opportunities which come out. The entire risk ecosystem, sorry, the entire risk aspect to a black swan event has been so very well highlighted thanks to Corona. I mean, thanks to COVID. I mean, there are risk managers who are actually thanking the COVID situation because it has really advocated for what they have been trying to say for such a long time to the management, to the workforce, that why assessing risk is so very important. And I would encourage all the participants who are right now with us, if they have any questions, please feel free to mention those questions in the question and answers window. We will do our best to take up your questions, small, lengthy, even if they are comments, please feel free to mention that. And I would request Dr. Gupta to take up those questions, later on. I would also like to welcome Mr. Ashish Mittal again. Thank you so much for your continued support and patronage, Mittal Saab, and also Mr. Prakash Patil from Prestons. I remember being in touch with Mr. Patil a long time back, and I also did check my contact mobile, list, and I saw his name and Prestons. So I'm so glad we are getting in touch, and all thanks to Dr. Gupta for connecting so many thousands of dollars.
I think I have not yet seen. I would request him to put on his video so that we can see. Prakash sir, I think more than a decade. So really great.
He's also from IIT Bombay, and I've had a chance. Yes, I don't remember at all, but he's from IIT Bombay, I know. And in fact, the eminent list of speakers this time, sir, for this OTP, I think Mr. Mittal, Mr. Lal, Mr. Patil talking about on-site, off-site plan, and we have Professor Ravi Sinha.
Ravi Sinha sir.
So, I think it's a great honor to have him as part of our list, and on so many others. I mean, I think that is the reason that it is reflecting on the number of participants which have signed up. I know they don't see, thanks to these online webinars, you don't find them. You can't get them under one roof in a physical space. But and that's where I say this online mechanism, this online idea is here to stay, and this will go on for a longer time, because the output it has given in last 9 to 10 months is remarkable. And I think we should, physical is always important, but this medium will also be equally important. Your mention on the BCP, sir, the business continuity planning, the health emergency aspect, the disaster event aspect, I think, which would also be reflected in, I'm sure, in Mr. Prakash Patil's presentation when he talks about online offsite plans. I think you've set the tone, sir. You've set the expectations very high. The bar is really high for all these coming speakers to match, and I'm sure, and they're all experts in their own fields, and they would all contribute to the success. I have a very strong feeling that it would be a very successful online training program, like all the earlier four. This particular fifth one as well. Thank you so much, Dr. Anil Gupta, for sharing your thoughts and your insights on this subject. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Moving on, I think Varun from my colleagues, and if he is in touch, I think Dr. Janal Bhardwaj has been trying, and my colleague Akhil and Varun are supporting him to sign up. I think he's finding some technical issue in signing up, some code issue, which I'm sure will be resolved very soon. Should we also expect ED and IDM, Dr. Gupta, to join?
Actually, he is in a meeting with Niti Aayog. He
Okay.
told that he will try. He told that he's trying. Meeting should be finished, so
Okay.
so he can join. Yeah.
So he will join once the meeting is finished. Okay, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. That's very comforting, sir. So, very encouraging, sir. Dr. Gupta, I think the support which the ED NIDM, General Bindal, has extended to this partnership, I think he's one of those. I think it all starts up there. You know, if you have that sort of guidance and leadership, I'm sure the such partnerships are only here to flourish. And I must congratulate and thank him for lending all his support and helping us eat into most of your time. We take a lot of your time in planning and scheduling these events. But Dr. Gupta, you've been very, very kind and very helpful in the entire process. Thank you. So, how do you suggest, Dr. Gupta? I think we will have Mr. Gangopadhyay also joining us shortly at around 3:40, and the formal inauguration, which is also an important formality of all such online training programs, that it can be I think can be pushed once General Bhardwaj comes in, and I think we can also hope that if Mr. Bindal joins, that perhaps we can have his inaugural comments and address also. I'm just
वो इन लोगों को बताना तुम्हारा वहाँ पे जो एग्रीकल्चर यूनिवर्सिटी है ना,
हाँ जी सर,
कुछ छोटा मोटा.
So, ladies and gentlemen, that was Dr. Anil Gupta, his lead lecture. Please don't forget to mention questions in that question answers window. If you have any, please feel free to ask us. The speakers, our eminent speakers, will be more than happy to take up those questions. I think I think Dr. Gupta is on a call. Dr. Gupta, I have a small input to share, sir. While we wait for our dignitaries to join, do you think we can take some questions if you have a couple of minutes, which I have, or would you want to take it up later? Because I think we'll take another couple of minutes for Dr. Bhardwaj, General Bhardwaj, to join while he's at it. Can we take a couple of questions? Wonderful. Sorry, okay, so you were on mute, but I will take it as a yes. I saw your nod, so I will take those questions. There's a question from Ganpati Bhuvindala. He asked, sir, I have some questions regarding risk assessment, especially the qualitative risk assessment. What are the various ways and means to calculate likelihood and severity, and also the ways of narrowing down the band of risk perception in an organization? Very relevant question.
Very important.
Yes.
Very important. See, as I was using some kind of a schematic when I was discussing about risk assessment. See, the very first thing is physical effect modeling. Like if some leakage happens, so what can happen? How much is the material? What is its characteristic? So first stage is physical effect modeling. Like what form it can take place. For example, the one of the catastrophic scenario sometimes we take for our mock drills and like that, like the BLAVE, boiling liquid expanding vapor explosion. That is one of the worst case scenario. But even smaller scenarios are also possible, like pool fire or these kind of things, or jet fire, particularly in case. So looking at that kind of storage, we have like vessel or the kind of a hot and sphere. So where the material is stored. So that is a physical effect modeling. And when we say that the first stage event, this Hejan and Hejab. So Hejab is basically for any kind of mechanical change, mechanical failure or mechanical deviations. So there, in fact, the role of mechanical engineering, I would say that the Hejab experts usually come from mechanical engineering, or sometimes from the chemical engineering also. They start with the PNI diagram. Basically, their work starts from there. So if I take example that if any kind of deviation in the flow, so if any kind of deviation in the flow, what will happen? So that is a kind of a job. And very interestingly, this hijab automatically takes cognizance of the operability issues, because it can be operational mistake also. So that is a dimension where we have lot of quantitative assessment. Like we use modeling, so we give some kind of a clear pictures. But how it is perceived by the people looking at the exposure, and then whether it is going to affect to this much of distance, so physical impact based on the model, then people's perception based on their experience, because people who are there or who have been working in the similar plant, they also have their own understanding, and ideally it should be blend of both. That gives a more prudent and correct picture also. So I think I will not speak much. I will talk on this point later, because now I am able to see General Bhardwaj sir.
Yes, we have General Bhardwaj amongst us. Very good afternoon, sir, and very warm welcome, General Bhardwaj.
I find a lot of difficulty in joining here.
Namaskar. Sir, namaskar, sir.
Namaskar, ji, namaskar.
But sir, we can see you very well, and we can hear you very well. I think on the computer, I think you were facing some trouble on the WebEx.
No, I'm all right now.
You're very audible, very clearly audible, sir, and also visible as well, sir. We can see your video as well. Thank you so much for joining, General Bhardwaj. Ladies and gentlemen, that's Dr. J.R. Bhardwaj, who is the former founding member of National Disaster Management Authority, and also the chairman of the FICCI CIDM board, which is the Chemical Industry Disaster Management Board. A very warm welcome on behalf of all participants who are over 315 number for this 5th OTP. Thank you so much. I hope my voice is not echoing. Okay, so
it is.
Okay, give me a moment. I think General Bhardwaj is sir, you can disconnect from your mobile, as we can see you on your computer screen.
Can you see me now?
Yes, so you can disconnect from your mobile, sir.
Okay, now.
Sir,
now.
Your mobile is still connected with the WebEx call.
I put it off.
If you could, there's a red. If you could disconnect it. Yeah.
It is disconnected now. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. I think there is no more not any more echo now,
yes,
right?
Sir.
So we can carry on now. Yeah, thank you. Yes, sir, General Bhardwaj, yes, you are very much clear, clearly visible, and also audible. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you again, sir.
No, thank you. I'm sorry that I messed up while joining, because something wrong with my computer or my operations. Usually I get trouble on Kisco, but if it is Google or something like that, straight away it gets linked.
Yes.
Well, gentlemen, it's a great pleasure to be here once again, because these courses that we run by NIDM and FICCI, they are always welcome, because during Corona, when there are lots of restrictions, we can't meet physically, but we can discuss the problems that we face in the industry, especially for safety. And our aim has been that we make the chemical industry as safe as possible, and time and again we discuss the points which are usually put forward by our members, our representatives who come from the industry. And since there are a lot of regulators who are associated with us, and NIDM is being a national institute for training, and is the best advice that they can give to any industry for that matter. The subjects that have been chosen this time are very, very important, because though it sounds simple that you have an on-site, off-site plan, but gentlemen, I must tell you that unless you synchronize the on-site and off-site plan. The success of off-site plan will not take place whenever there's a bigger accident or an disaster. And this has been experienced that while doing the mock drills, we have to, during tabletop exercises, we have to see that the knowledge of the particular industry on-site informations must be well tied up by the off-site planner, that is the district collector, and should have arrangements to counteract or manage the disaster that has occurred on-site. So therefore, it is essential. It's also essential for first responders. Then another issue that we are discussing today is the next 3 days is basically the occupational health and health of the industry people. And safety, of course, remains the major issue in most of the discussions, because during COVID we have had few accidents, which later on we realized that these were because of sudden closure of the industry during COVID. I congratulate FICCI and NIDM once again to have assembled a large number of representatives from the delegates from the industry, chemical industry, and hope so that these exercises will continue. I wish them all the best, and please, you will certainly gain at the end of it. Jai Hind.
Thank you very much, General Bharadwaj, for your very encouraging and motivating remarks. In fact, you summed it up so very well that all these, since the lockdown happened, in fact, since the restarting of industry started, I think there were certain incidents which really raised some eyebrows on the preparations because of, as you rightly said, of sudden shutdown. Could be is one of the major reasons behind it, and the way we swung into action in partnership with NIDM, so FICCI and NIDM under your leadership at the CIDM board, we could really make some very impactful contribution to the industrial sector in the country. In fact, so much so that we have participation, sir, today and even on earlier occasions, participation from neighboring countries, industries from neighboring countries, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka. They've been also Nepal. They've been also joining us, on our platform to learn more from our experts who you really, I would say worked with during your time in NDMA as the member, and even groomed most of them, sir. And I think Professor Anil Gupta has always very, very sweet and very nice remarks to make. If you, Dr. If you are there at, I think. Dr. Gupta, over to you for any remarks you would like to make on like Jan Bharadwaj just spoke, sir. Over to you.
So, in fact, when General Bharadwaj Sahab is there, then everyone actually looks for his blessing for remarks, as you are already quoting.
Yeah.
When I joined NIDM, since then, since then actually I am learning so many things from him, and in area of chemical disaster management, he is the Bhishma Pitama.
Yeah.
So it is always great to learn from him. Every time we get new insights. And sir, as you always say, this is really a great transition period for industry, because this coronavirus pandemic period has given a lot of insights, though now there is no lockdown. Now we are moving towards normalcy, but it has given a lot of insights for improving the safety system and safety culture in industries. That industries need to think in a more holistic level about safety and disaster management. Like first time it was realized that a health emergency can also create a lot of havoc to the production system, can affect its business, can affect its supply chain system, and then when you are required to alter your management procedures, then like what happened in some of the industries when we were to restart our industries after the lockdown, so in the unlock period. So like different set of people, are you had lesser number of people, and then a safety review could not take place, and we started industries, and then some mishaps happened. So those are new lessons. Then technology is also changing a lot now. More and more mapping based technology, automation based things are there. So these are the new lessons. In fact, for firefighting and this now robotics based technology, the thermal exposure of the people or firefighters can be avoided. The robots can fight if fire in our place. So these kind of things, drone technology. So these are new avenues for rethinking the entire business of safety management within industry. So I think it would be really great to listen to General Bhardwaj Saab. And sir, actually, our ED and IDM was very keen to join, and I think he may join also. He is in a meeting with Niti Aayog. He still conveyed me just a few minutes before also. Anil, you continue, but मैं कोशिश करता हूँ कि मैं आ जाऊँ. So it would be really great to hear you, sir.
Thank you, Professor Gupta. Very nice to hear you. And I think we are doing excellent job and on this forum.
Thank you, sir.
Best of
Thank
luck.
you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, General Bhardwaj. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Lieutenant General Dr. J.R. Bhardwaj, the CIDM, the chairman of the CIDM board and former founding member of NDMA. I would, although he needs no introduction, but a couple of lines, telling more about him. Dr. Janak Raj Bhardwaj, formerly honorary surgeon to the President of India, was appointed in September 2005 to the coveted post of member in the NDMA, the National Disaster Management Authority, an appointment accorded the status of Minister of State in the Government of India. Under the chairmanship of Honorable Prime Minister of India, prior to his appointment, he served as the Director General, Armed Forces Medical Services, DGFMS, in the rank of Lieutenant General in the Indian Armed Forces. Maybe a lot of people would not know, but that is the highest doctor in the armed forces can achieve what General Bhardwaj achieved. He has spearheaded many operations and missions of Indian Army, whether it was the earthquake situation in Gujarat or even the war in Kashmir. I think it was early 2000. So I think General Bhardwaj, we're really privileged and honored to have you with us for your opening remarks. With your permission, sir, we had the lead lecture from Professor Anil Gupta. We started at 2:30. He gave a very detailed presentation and on what he does the best on setting the perspective and outlining the expectations from the 3 days of the online training program. He mentioned very in detail about the risk assessment and emergency planning steps, how business continuity planning is how it is relevant, and how safety and sustainability needs to go together towards creating a better and a safer working environment in the industries. So it was, we've got very positive comments also from our participants on the lead lecture, which was presented by Dr. Anil Gupta. Sir, with your permission, if we have the next speaker, Dr. H.M. Gangopadhyay, who would be making a presentation on safety management. He is the former additional general manager and HOD from NTPC Limited, sir. So, is that okay, sir? Should we go on with the next presentation of Mr. Gangopadhyay?
Oh, yes. Please carry on.
Thank you, General Saab. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll have Shri Gangopadhyay now as our next speaker. A brief introduction. He would speak on safety management in industries. Shri Gangopadhyay is a former AGM and HOD of Corporate Safety Department at NTPC Limited and professionally qualified safety consultant and advisor. He has worked for NTPC Limited for over 32 years. An electrical engineer from BPC Institute of Technology, West Bengal. Is having PGDM in industrial safety from Kolkata University. Effectively supervised, trained, and implemented safety management systems in various NTPC plants, thermal, gas, and hydro, and coal mines also across the country. His core competency areas are comprehensive review and implementing OHSAS 18001, ISO 45001, developing sustainable safety culture at work sites, safety and O&M and construction projects, and trainer for OHS management and BBS culture. He is active executive committee member and VC of National Safety Council Delhi chapter. So thank you so much, Mr. Gangopadhyay, for joining us today and being a part of this 5th online training program where you would be talking on safety management. Mr. Gangopadhyay, can we have your, I hope we are audible. Can we have a quick audio check with you as well?
Yeah, thank you very much.
Wonderful. Over to you, sir.
I think I am audible to you. I think it's clear. Voice is clear.
Yes, it is clear. Yes.
Yeah. So, can we start now?
Yes, sir. Go ahead. Over to you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much for a nice introduction made by you. And it is, in fact, a big pleasure for me to meet you once again, maybe almost after 1 month. And again, today's topic you have given me is safety management system. And I would like to share my experience and knowledge on this field. And regarding safety management system, which will include definitely behavioral based safety also, because in today's context, that is the most important aspect to have a very effective safety culture in any industry or any factory. So I'll touch upon that also. My presentation outline will be why safety is important. We'll be discussing on this first, and then principle of safety management system, hazard risk and risk management. That is very important. That is the only proactive action we need to take every time, everywhere. Controlling of hazards, BBS type of culture, and what is the challenge and way forward. That also we'll be discussing. So am I visible to you also? My video is also okay, Mr. Sood?
Your video is off, Mr. Gangopadhyay. Your video is off.
Off.
We can see your presentation.
But you can see my presentation. I think
Yes,
then it's let us continue with that. Huh?
Yeah.
Presentation should be very clearly visible. That is all.
Yeah, it is visible. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. So why safety is important for us? Basically, it is 3 different reasons why safety is important for everybody, everywhere, and every time. Number 1 is it is a moral responsibility of each and every individual, whether he is working in factory or not. But and one more thing I'd like to mention here first. Whenever we are talking on safety, we are discussing on safety, it is not a 8 hours or 10 hours requirement in factory only. It is 24/7. That means it is 24 hours a day and 7 days in a week, 365 days in a year, every time, everywhere it is required. So it's a moral responsibility. That means whether we are on site or off site, we have to see that we are totally safe. That is our primary responsibility. And then we have to see that because of our actions, our co-fellows or co-employees should also not be in danger. So that is our moral responsibility, and that is why we have to always act safely. We should not commit any mistake or violate anything which is not permitted as per our internal or even external system. Second is our social responsibility, is a legal requirement also. Occupier, we know in Factories Act in section 7A, it is mentioned that occupier's responsibility is to provide a safe working environment for all its employees and stakeholders. That means including contractual laborers and visitors and all other partners, everybody. So that is his responsibility to provide a safe working environment in the entire factory premises. And third is economic, that is most important. And for any accident, there are 2 different types of costs. One is direct or tangible, another is indirect. That means it is intangible loss. So direct cost may be only medical expenses provided due to this accident to the victims and some insurance cost and all, but the intangible cost or indirect cost is enormous. Maybe sometimes it is 100 times or 200 times more than the direct cost. So these are some of the things, are some of the indirect costs, are maybe moral down, maybe generational loss or production loss, maybe bandage loss, so many other things. So we have to see that there is no accident, so that economic condition is also very stable and strength in the organization. So basically, this is 3 reasons why safety is very important for all of us. And whenever we are talking about safety, we have to think that we have to create a meaningful and effective safety culture. It is not that our target should be, our goal should be to achieve 0 accident or 0 incident. That is a very minimum target. We should always think that we have to create an effective safety culture in our system. And for that, we have to always remember that safety is a way of life. That means it is a process and it is not a program. Like so many activities we are performing, it is assigned to different people, different groups, different departments. So similarly, safety is also a program. It is never like that. Safety is a process. That means with everything, every activity, safety is inbuilt. It is not a separate, it is not a different program. And for that, we have to remember that every time we are thinking or we are looking for production or generation or quality or efficiency, safety should also be treated like that. Everybody must be a safety leader. That means we all should feel that I am working like a safety officer. So every time we are doing any job, performing any job, executing any job, we have to see that it is done in the safest possible manner. So that is also my responsibility. And we have to at the same time encourage others to obey safety or to follow safety. There should not be any violation. So that is also responsibility of everybody. And when we talk about safety, these are some of the, not exhaustive, these are some of the major components in safety management system. Number 1 and foremost is safety policy. Any organization should have a sound and very effective safety policy. That means it's a commitment given by the management, top management, that this way we are going to manage safety, and safety is treated by the management, top management, as most important aspect. And for that, what we are going to do, how it will be implemented in our system. So that is safety policy, and we should have a very robust manual where everything will be mentioned in an elaborate way. So manual, the most important part, or maybe the first part of that manual, should be policy. Number 2 is risk assessment and risk management. That means either we have to follow job safety analysis, or maybe HERO nowadays as per ISO 45001. That's the most important part in ISO 45001. That is HERO. That means risk assessment and opportunity. It is not normal HERA. Hazard identification and risk management or risk assessment, earlier we used to say. Now it is HERO. So that has to be done in any organization. That is the proactive action. And then emergency mitigation and response plan. That means on-site emergency plan or disaster management plan. That is very, very important for any organization, whether it is a construction site or whether it is one name site or maybe production site. So emergency mitigation and response plan, that we should have, and regular mock drill or rehearsal has to be conducted very seriously. And we have to see what are the shortcomings out of those mock drills, and it is to be closed immediately. Then safety assurance and promotion, that is very important. Safety assurance plan, mainly it is by the contractual agencies, and they have to, before start of the job, they have to ensure that everything will be in place in case of any emergency, or even in the normal situation also. Safety is taken care of by them in all possible manner. And then active involvement of stakeholders. Everybody should be involved in the safety management system, so that everybody will feel its responsibility and accountability in safety management system. Implementation of statutory regulations. We see and we say that statutory regulation is not all. We cannot achieve 100% safety through statutory regulations only. We may get maybe 30%, 40%. But this is out of compulsion actually. Statutory regulations mean it is a compulsion. We have to follow that. But out of compulsion, 100% safety cannot be achieved. We have to do it, safety, we have to do out of conviction from the inner core of the, that means it should be a way of life. It should be our value system. And then regular review by top management. That is also very, very important. Top management should take a regular review how the things are going on, whether it is in line or whether something more we have to do, and accordingly the further actions, corrective actions need to be taken. So regular review is also very important. So this may be some of the very important component, major component in having a very effective safety management system. Then basic principles: establish and observe a written environment health and safety policy we have stated earlier, and then implement the content and in latent spirit. Only mere declaring a policy by the top management is not enough. We have to follow it in latent spirit. That is very, very important. And then create an independent EHS review process. In some of the organizations I have seen that it is there, but it is part of the main program where safety is not being given that much of importance. So it is independent. That is very important. That means separately a safety review meeting has to be taken, not with other activities or other programs. So separate and independent EHS review process by the top management is very, very important. Maybe it has to be done fortnightly or monthly, but it is to be done independent. And identify and evaluate the consequence of hazards. So probability and then its consequence, how often these are happening, and what are the major areas where the things are happening very frequently, and then what actions are to be needed. Implement with strong zeal, that is very important, and first attempt to eliminate hazards. If not possible, then reduce the possibility. That means we have to always follow the hierarchy of control system. In safety, it is elimination first and then substitution. Third is engineering control, that means operational parameters. And then fourth one is administrative control, and final last one, which is least effective, that is through PPE, personal protective equipment. But lot many people are having confusion or fallacy, actually I can say, that anytime any problem we are finding, so the solution is through PPE. People are working in coal handling area where a lot of dust particles are flying, so they are inhaling. Maybe they will have after some time the serious problem, health hazards. So let us give them sufficient numbers of nose masks. We are not going for any engineering control, whether dust suppression and extraction system is functioning, water sprinkling system is regularly being done or not, that we are not bothering. So that is not correct. So definitely we will follow use of PPE also, but that has to come in the last. So that is as per control sequence. Now, when we talk about target in safety, why I am putting this slide also in this presentation, because I have found a lot of people are having this confusion also. People are saying, even in lot many industries I have seen during my visits, that the big boards are displayed where the target in safety is mentioned, zero accident, zero accident. Sometimes I have seen even maybe very, very rare cases, but zero fatal accident. These are the targets in safety. Surprising. So whether the target should be zero accident or zero near miss or zero hazard. So as per Henry's theory, it says the proportion is 1:29:300:3000. That means before any fatality, any fatal accident, 29 minor incidents, minor accidents are taking place. Injury type of cases are taking place in that industry or in that unit or in that plant. Before that, 300 near misses are also taking place. Maybe our reporting system is not that strong. Near miss is not being reported, and that is why we are not getting the data or the figures. But definitely these are happening. This is as per Henry's theory. And before that, 3,000 numbers of hazards, that means risk, that means unsafe conditions and unsafe actions are being created. So that is why, because of these hazards, actually, these are the main culprits: hazards, unsafe conditions, and unsafe actions. Because of this 3,000 number, 300 is coming, near miss. And because of these 3,000 numbers, even 29 is coming, and even one fatality is also taking place. So if our target is to make zero accident, then we have to definitely target these hazards. Hazards should not be there. So hazards, if that is the target in safety, that is perfect. And even that is also not perfect, I can tell you, because this is the Henry's theory. That is why I have mentioned. But nowadays, even the management is having the target of creating a total safety culture, which will take care of everything, including these hazards. So apart from these zero hazards, that will include some more things also. I'll not be discussing right now over here because of the shortage of time. So ultimately, our target should be to create an effective safety culture where there will be no hazards, unsafe conditions, or unsafe actions also. At the same time, we will be performing so many other things in safety so that people will definitely work in that kind of atmosphere where there will be no fear from any hazards or any accident. That means it's a total safety culture. So that should be the ultimate target, but at least here we should think, we should see that our target should be zero hazards or zero risk, not this zero near miss or zero minor accident or zero fatal accident. Now, these are lag indicators and lead indicators. Lead indicators are these near misses even also, and then hazards elimination. But lag indicators means whether it is fatality, whether it is reportable injury or recordable injury, first aid cases, anything. So once this is happening, that means then any type of actions we are taking, that will be reactive type of actions we are taking if we are doing anything on lag indicators. But if we are doing anything on lead indicators, that means we are doing proactive actions. So in safety, two words are very important, that is proactive actions and positive mindset. So if we are actually believing in lead indicators, that means proactive actions, then definitely we have to think for positive mindset and proactive actions. So proactive actions means hazards elimination, near misses eliminations. Okay. Now, this is another very important thing, this 5E theory: engineering, control, and then education, enforcement, encouragement, and empowerment. Through this 5E, we can achieve 100% safety. Engineering control means, if we talk about again that control sequence, the first one is elimination, second one is substitution, but in every time we will not be able to do that, elimination of the hazard, substitution of the hazard. But in 100% cases, we can apply engineering control. That is already there. Maybe it is because of some reason, because of somebody's negligent attitude, this has been removed from the system, but this is definitely there. So engineering control or operational parameters, that is to be put in place. So engineering control is the first, then education, and that means we have to take care of the behavioral aspect. That is most important. We'll be talking on this behavioral aspect also maybe in 4 or 5 slides. But that is very, very important. We can achieve 100% safety through behavioral change only, because everything, every time, anytime, anything is happening, it is because of some fault in somebody's attitude or behavior. So that is to be taken care of, and that can be successfully done by continuous training and education. Third is enforcement. Whether we are the things are coming out on the surface through audit or inspection or different activities, immediate action should be taken immediately to close those gaps. Nothing should be kept pending. So that should be very, very important, enforcement part. And then encouragement. If somebody is doing very good job in safety, he should be encouraged. So encouragement is for motivation to other people also. That is very important. And empowerment, who are actually doing the job, we should always discuss with them, and we should take their opinion also whenever the management is deciding something to happen or to take place in the site. So before that, the concerned group has to be discussed, and that is known as the empowerment. So this 5E is very important for having a successful safety management system. Now coming to hazards, risk, and then risk analysis and risk management. Hazard is anything that has the potential to cause harm. So sometimes maybe it is in form of some physical unsafe condition, sometimes maybe within the person itself, that is we talk it as unsafe actions or unsafe practice committed by somebody. So this can do some harm to some people. So this is known as the hazard. But risk is the chance. If there is a hazard, that does not mean anybody and everybody is having the risk out of that hazard. When any human being is coming into contact with that hazard, or there is a possibility to come into contact with that hazard, or in a very close proximity to that hazard, then only risk is coming. So risk is the chance or likelihood. It may be low or medium or high. That has to be ascertained through this different systematic process known as job safety analysis or HERA or HERO. So, or maybe sometimes we call it as a hedge of study or HAZAN. There are so many processes, but at least one process should be there in every individual unit or location to ascertain what is the hazard and what is the risk out of this hazard. Who are the people who can be harmed because of this hazard and because of this risk, and whether the risk level is low or medium or high. If it is low, we can still continue with some precaution for this job for some time. But if it is medium, then we have to take corrective action immediately. But if it is very high, level of risk is very high, we have to stop the job. And then first we have to rectify the situation or the hazards, or it has to come down to the low level, and then only we can further continue the job. So that is being done through either job safety analysis or risk analysis. So there are different processes or systems. So once this risk analysis is done, then the things are very clear to us, that what is the problem, what are the problems in different steps of the job. Any job can be subdivided into maybe 10, 15, 20 different steps. And then against each step, what are the problems or risk involved. And then against each risk or each step, what are the management program to be taken, so that the gap is closed or the problem is sorted out. Either it is by elimination process, or maybe sometimes it is by guarding the problem or the hazard. So that is in totality the risk management system. While doing it, we must see the logical approach, because in logical approach, three things are included, which is normally we are not following, and that is why we are sometimes not getting the desired result. What is the logical approach while we are doing this risk analysis, hazard analysis, identification and analysis and corrective actions? First, we have to do the identification of the hazards, then decide who might be harmed and how. That means who are the people who are coming very close proximity to this particular type of hazard, and then how they can be harmed, whether it is fall from height, whether this is because of fall of materials from height, whether this is because of some electrocution or electric flashover, whether somebody is working in the confined space and he may be harmed because of the hazard of some toxic gases present in the confined space area, or maybe low level of oxygen. So these are the various types of hazards, and because of various types of activities, the hazards are also different. Then who are the people who might be harmed, and then let us evaluate the risks, whether it is through HERA or HERO or JSA or hedge of study. And then this fourth point, fifth point and sixth point is very important. Then we should consider the options for control. What are the different types of control? Maybe we are having 2, 3, 4 different types of controls. Which particular type of control is to be put in place? That is to be decided. Before that, we have to discuss options with the interest groups. Who are the people who are actually working? By virtue of their work experience and knowledge, they are having much more idea about that particular type of hazard and its risk. So therefore, if we discuss with them, they can give further input. Once we get the further inputs about the hazards, further classification and the risk control system, then we will be getting more information. And then after that, if we think for the optimal option, which will be out of these 3, 4 options, which will be most effective, and then if we try to implement in the system, we will get the maximum result, or it will be a sustainable development. So these 3 points are very important, and then we should implement control measures and monitor and review. In the normal system, what people are doing, identify the hazards and then decide who might be harmed, evaluate the risks, then straight away they are coming to the 7th point, that is implement then control measures, because that is known to us now. What are the control measures, without discussing with the concerned groups, and then monitor and review is also taking place. So if we follow that, then we may not get the maximum result. Now this we have already discussed. This is the hierarchy of controls. That means elimination first, and then substitution, then engineering control, then administrative control, then PP. PP is the least effective, and most effective is the elimination. Definitely we may not get the elimination process or the way out in most of the cases, but we should always think. In some cases, maybe working at height, some opening in a particular elevation or platform, some opening is there because of certain reason. Let us first see whether this opening can be closed, because through this opening somebody may fall, because people are working around it. So if that opening can be closed, that is the best thing. That means it is elimination of the hazard. If that can be closed permanently, that is the best. But maybe that opening is there because of some purpose, material lifting or something. So that is why it is not. So at least then we have to do some barricading, temporary barricading. So if that is done through handrail and tow guards, so that is known as the engineering control. Administrative control, we can put some even display board also that there is a opening and it is temporarily guarded. You should be very, very cautious while you are moving in and around of this opening. So that is administrative control. And then PP, definitely if people are working at that height, for working at height, we know the particular type of PP required, compulsory PP required is number 1 is safety helmet, number 2 is safety belt. So definitely people should work with these two safety PP also. But if we always think that working at height, then PP must be given, that means people should work with the wearing of a good safety full body harness. And we are not thinking for any other corrective actions, administrative, engineering control, nothing, elimination, nothing. Then probably we are not doing justice for the safety. Primary action, secondary action, and tertiary action. That is very, very important. Primary action actually is talking about the engineering control and maybe elimination sometimes, or maybe substitution process. Primary actions. These are as primary actions. Either it is eliminating or it is reducing the risk by providing guards. Secondary action means it is maybe sometimes administrative control, sometimes maybe awareness raising, sometimes providing training program. So these kind of activities are known as secondary action. We should do secondary action also. And tertiary action means sometimes counseling, maybe in a particular group out of 10 or 15 or 20 people, maybe 1 or 2 persons are not following safety. The safety is not an important aspect for them at all. In every group, we will find at least 1 or 2% or 3 or 4% people are like that. So if we allow them to continue like that, so gradually what will happen from this 1 or 2% in the group, gradually it will increase. It will go on increasing. Maybe after some time it will be 4 or 5. After some time, if we are allowing people to work like that, violation taking place. I mean, these kind of people are known as they are following safety out of gambling. Actually, we know 3 different types of process in safety. One is leader, another is follower, and third one is the gambler. So leader means that is the perfect way. So everything will be in place and people will be following and people will be taking proactive actions, positive mindset. That is leadership approach. Second is follower. That means whatever is coming out from the top management, we will be following. Whether it is good or bad, whether it is having some other kind of problem also, nobody is going to think on that. So that is simply a follower system. And third one is gambling. Gambling means we are never following safety. And maybe out of our good fortune, we are not getting that kind of accidents also. But we are happy. People are happy. Management is also happy. Whatever the thing, we are not taking care of anything. We are not doing anything, whether it is proactive actions or reactive actions, whether it is regular site visit, whether it is auditing, whether it is any other kind of programs like safety training program we are conducting or not. Never mind. But ultimately, at the end of the year, at the end of the day, we find that there is no accident. So management is happy, people are also happy. But this is a gambler type of approach. So that is to be avoided all the time. Today, we are lucky. Tomorrow, we may not be. So tertiary action means every time we have to think that we should not allow people to follow gambling type of safety approach. So if even in a group of 50, say even 1 person is also having that kind of attitude and he is never following safety, he should be treated very seriously, and counseling and psychological help, everything should be provided by the respective person who is responsible, maybe his supervisor, maybe his reporting officer, maybe by his HOD. So that is very, very important. So that is why primary action, secondary action, and tertiary action, this is very, very important. And that is why we say that risk management is an art. It is not a science. That this way we have to go, these things we have to do. It is never like that. We are having certain procedures and systems and rules and regulations, internal, external, but ultimately it is our judgment how to get the best result. Now we will be talking about traditional concept in safety management and then behavioral based. Now behavioral based is very, very effective. Traditional concept we are following in most of the industries, they are following it, but we are not getting the desired result, I can tell you. So it is actually a typically top-down approach. Everything is coming from the topmost person. Maybe our CMD, maybe our managing director, maybe the CEO, he is thinking, and then he is giving the direction that in safety we have to do this. Then it is coming down through different directors, and then maybe subsequently by topmost management, and then coming down through HOD, and then reporting officer, sometimes engineer in charge, and then finally it is coming down to the lowest level of person who are actually doing the job. So when this is coming down from the topmost person to the junior most, maybe he is finding, the person who is actually doing the job, he is finding so many problems and hurdles. He cannot follow this way. But even then, his opinion and his consent is never taken while deciding anything on safety. So it is a top-down approach, then focuses on regulations. Mostly it is focuses on regulations and guidelines, that we are having internal guidelines, procedures, and maybe sometimes SOPs, and then sometimes it is different types of do's and don'ts, circulars. And through this, we see and we expect that people will be following safety and will get the desired. Sometimes it is external, that means regulations, statutory, whether it is Factories Act, whether it is BOCW, whether it is Indian Electricity Rules, Boilers Act, so many. So through those regulations, if we can, sometimes it is Pollution Control Board guidelines. So through this, we actually try to manage safety systems. We cannot get more than 30% or 40% out of that. So it is basically focusing on regulations and guidelines. It treats actually the symptoms. It is not going into root cause actually. So it is only treating the symptoms. It's an external enforcement, because I am not thinking that it is basically my responsibility, and we have to work with full safety, because basically safety is required for me and for my family. Immediately after that, for my family members. So it is my requirement. It is a personal requirement. It's a personal value system. So we are not thinking it's everything. It is external enforcement and following safety out of compulsion. So that is why ultimately we are following safety out of compulsion. Anything if we do out of compulsion, we cannot get the desired result. It has to be through out of conviction. In the behavioral based concept, it's a bottom-up approach. It is coming from the junior most person. That means every time they are giving empowerment and their opinion is respected. Before deciding something, as I told you, the logical approach of control of any hazards, they have to be discussed before finally we are coming to a conclusion that this has to be done like that only. Their opinion also to be respected. So it is a bottom-up approach, and it focuses on employee behavior only, because we know almost 90% of the accidents are taking place because of the unsafe actions, not because of the unsafe conditions. So although we say that because of the hazards only, hazards means it is summation of unsafe conditions and unsafe practices. So unsafe practices contributes almost 90%, 88% actually. 10% is because of the unsafe condition, physical conditions. So if it is like that, then definitely the behavior is to be treated most seriously, and we have to mold our behavior. Everything we are having the problem. Maybe it is not always with the junior most person or the workers or the laborers. Even we are also sometime doing some job, and because of our wrong attitude, it is there in almost everybody. I can tell you 3 basic problems or negative traits, I can tell you, in every human being, irrespective of his designation and in what category he is working and where he is working. So it is basically 3 negative traits. That is, number 1 is overconfidence, number 2 is negligent attitude, and number 3 is ignorance. So we have to overcome these 3 as soon as possible. This is actually creating all problems. So it is actually focusing on employee behavior. It addresses the root cause, not the symptoms, and it is an internal enforcement. If we can convince the people who are working, it is a very, very long procedure. That is why in most of the industries, management do not want to go for behavioral based concept, but it is the ultimate solution, I can tell you, behavioral based concept. Once it is achieved, then we are relaxed for 30, 40, 50 years. So behavioral based concept, the progress is very slow. In the first year, maybe only 10%, 15% improvement will take place. Second year, maybe 30%. Third year, maybe 60%. Fourth year, maybe around 90%, 85 to 90% will achieve. So if we start today, maybe after 5 years, 100% behavioral based concept will be in place in any industry. So we have to wait for that. We have to give time for that. But this is only sustainable development actually. So it is internal enforcement, and it is following out of conviction. So it has to come out of conviction. So turn and talk is like this. What kind of injuries and accidents are common in our workplace. So that we have to see first, and then why these are happening, second question, and then how this could be avoided, and then honest, proactive, and convictive approach. These three words are very important: honest, proactive, and elimination, convictive approach for elimination or control. Sometimes it should be totally eliminating the hazard, sometimes it should be working, our work would be for controlling the hazard, and controlling the hazard means to a low level risk. That means whether it is, even if it is in the high level, that has to come down to low level, whether it is in the medium level, that has to come down into the low level. So control, that is, if we can eliminate, that means zero, then it is best. But in most of the cases, we will find that elimination, because any factory, any industry means it is hazard. Without any hazard, we cannot find any industry. So if we can eliminate the hazards, in some cases it will be possible, but in most of the cases it will not be possible. Then it has to be controlled, or guarding has to take place, so that the interface between the human being and the hazard will not be there. Guarding means it is a barrier actually between the human being and the hazard. So that is to be done. While we are going for now, it's a comparison actually. We can understand in a better way what is the difference between traditional concept and the behavioral based concept. Traditional concept, we think that whatever activities we are performing in the plant, whether it is safety training program, whether it is safety meetings, different meetings we are organizing time to time, whether it is review by top management, whether it is risk analysis we are doing, whether it is campaigning we are doing, whether it is audits and inspection regularly we are conducting, everything is for elimination of accidents. We are thinking, management is thinking, people are thinking, employees are thinking. So in traditional concept, this is the concept actually. Whatever we are doing, it is for elimination of accidents. That is the concept. But in behavioral based concept, whatever activities, all those activities here, all those in the previous slide, here it is. So whatever activities we are doing, we think in the behavioral based concept, it is for elimination of at-risk behaviors. That means elimination of unsafe actions we are doing. Then definitely it will come elimination of accidents. If we can achieve this, definitely we will be achieving this. So this is very, very important in behavioral based concept. We are, whatever activities we are doing with a target to eliminate at-risk behaviors or unsafe behaviors. That is the difference. So these two slides is giving a clear picture what is the difference between a behavioral based concept and a traditional concept. Here in the behavioral based concept, we are not thinking for the accident, elimination of accidents at all. We are only thinking for molding of behaviors. Behaviors need to be changed, and nobody should do anything with at-risk behaviors or unsafe behaviors. So these are some of the parameters in behavioral based concept. Safe people versus safe places. So whatever we are thinking, every place, every location has to be made safe. That means we are thinking for the people actually. If the people are safe, places will be safe, or vice versa. If the places are safe, people will definitely remain safe. And then it can be done through behavioral management. Observation and feedback is very important. Injury is equal to management error. That is very, very important. Every time we should think that any injury is taking place, that means there is a management error. Management has to take the responsibility. So every time, whether it is even by an unsafe action by somebody, but why management has allowed that particular person to commit some unsafe actions. So that is the management's responsibility. So anytime any injury, very, very minor, trivial in nature, or first aid cases even, definitely we should think it seriously. That means there are some management error, and then accordingly we have to think to correct that management system. Measure behaviors versus results, and then positive reinforcement. In behavioral based concept, one very big change, or we can say good idea, is positive reinforcement. We are sometimes following positive reinforcement, sometimes we are following negative reinforcement also. If somebody is doing some action which is not desired by the management, then sometimes either we are scolding him, sometimes we are telling him that if in future also you conduct the action like that only, there may be some strict action against you. So these are all negative reinforcement. We should try to avoid negative reinforcement. Every time it should be positive reinforcement, and positive reinforcement only. And then in a performance model, we have three systems to have a very big performance or great performance. One is climate, second is systems, and third one is behavior. These three are very important aspects. When we talk about the systems, then the different elements are accountability, and then communication, decision making, review, orientation, training, employment, and auditing. These are some of the elements in the systems. Actually, these must be there, and these should work very effectively to get the great performance. Second is elements in behaviors, honesty and integrity. Whenever we are trying to implement behavioral-based safety, it has to be done by honesty and integrity. There are different aspects. I cannot, because of the shortage of time constraint, I cannot go into detail, but this is really fantastic. If we can get some time in future, I'll be discussing with you in details that how behavioral-based concept is implemented in an industry to get better result. Honesty and integrity, it has to be done. That means if we are finding some problems in anybody at any location, in his behavior, in his action, then we have to go into root cause why he is doing this unsafe action. It is not an immediate cause, but maybe we have to go at least 6-7 steps behind the why. And every time we have to ask, once we are getting this answer, because of this, he has done this. Maybe immediately he's telling because of the urgency. Then why there was an urgency and who has put you under pressure for doing it instead of taking 30 minutes, it has to be done within 10 minutes. Then what was the problem with that person even? Then ultimately we have to reach to the actual problem, where from, that means the root cause, where from this problem has been generated. And then we have to think at that particular location, what is the corrective measure, not onto this person. If we simply think that because of this wrong action by this person, this has been done, we are scolding, we are giving a warning to him, but again, next time also the same thing will happen because we have ultimately not done the root cause analysis. We have not gone into details. We have not gone into the behavioral aspects of so many people. He is not the responsible. Maybe in the chain, 10 different people, including some top level people, are also responsible in this. So with full honesty and integrity, we have to do it. Ask for help to ensure safety, recognition, observation and feedback, trust, and listen with empathy. These are some of the elements in the behavior. And elements in the climate variables are confidence, interest in people, understanding the problem, training and helping, teaching to solve problems, much information. That means whatever information are required at the site level for anybody or any group, this has to be provided by the management. That is also the responsibility of the management. And then approachability, so that people can come openly and discuss the issues with his superiors or peer level people, or maybe sometimes junior level people, subordinates also. So that kind of confidence and interest and atmosphere has to be, climate has to be created for inculcating a very effective behavioral based concept. So what are the obstacles to success? The obstacles are lack of management commitment for having a very good and effective behavioral-based safety concept. Lack of management commitment, poorly maintained facilities. Facilities are not there, so we cannot do anything. Lack of resources. We have to think whether it is human resources or materialistic or even sometimes financial. So we have to, management has to provide all types of resources to manage. It is never like that we'll only talk on safety, but when it is coming actually in the reality, we are not providing the required resources, whether it is manpower, whether it is materialistic, or whether it is financial. So then we cannot achieve. It will be only on talks. Top-down management practices. This is also one of the hurdle for achieving a good behavioral-based safety concept. And then safety not treated as a value system, and poor planning and execution, and inadequate and improper training. We are sometimes conducting trainings, but we have to do it with full sincerity. That is very, very important. It is not never like that because we are having these targets, this many safety training programs have to be conducted in this year or this 6 months or this 3 months, so we have to do it. Maybe if it is the target is for 1 year, maybe up to 10 months, first 10 months, out of 10 programs or 20 programs, maybe we have achieved only 20%, 25%, and maybe remaining 2 months, we are doing 75%. So that is not correct. We have to do it with full sincerity, in adequate and proper training. That is very, very important. And this is the last slide. So this is the key to success. We have to think for all these points very seriously, and we have to follow it at site. Number one, always we have to be positive towards safety by changing our behavior. Every time we should think that, yes, this can be done this way. Maybe sometimes it will take some more time. Maybe sometimes there is problem, bypassing is there. We have to take some time to make it all right first, and then we can start the actual job. But we are not allowing, we are not giving that much of time because of some problems in our mindset. We are taking a lot of risks every day, every time. And in most of the times, I can tell you, we are getting away. But even if it is happening once in our lifetime also, that is also too costly. We should always think like that. So we will never take any kind of risk. That means in safety, we say that the tolerance level is 0. So we'll always follow it. The tolerance level in safety should be 0 only. Then proactive, we should be positive, and then we should be proactive. Before something happens, we will take all sorts of proactive actions and we'll close the gaps either through JSA or through HERA or through hazard study, anything. We will first close the gaps and then we will continue with the job. It is never like that, something happening and then constitution of inquiry committee, and then inquiry committee is going into details and some recommendations coming. We'll try to implement those things. So these are reactive in nature. So ultimately we should have a target. We can say another target in safety, maybe the target in safety, maybe constitution of 0 inquiry committee. If that is not there, when an inquiry committee is constituted, when either there is an accident or there may be some near miss type of incidents also, then only inquiry committee constitution take place, and then this technical committee goes into detail for investigation and giving some solutions or these recommendations to implement. So if in 1 year or 6 months or whatever is the time, if constitution of inquiry committee in the true sense is 0, that means we are not having anything, no near miss, no accidents. That means 0 hazards. So that can be another target in safety, constitution of 0 inquiry committee. Then follow conviction, not compulsion. So everything has to be done out of conviction, not out of compulsion. That is the behavioral part, behavioral change. And then focus on eliminating hazards, not the accident. That should not be our target at all. Implement VBS type of approach and involve everybody. In VBS type of approach, all people are involved and it's a joint effort every time. So involve everybody in safety management system, strive for continual improvement. That can be done only through VBS type of culture, not through the traditional concept. And then skill development and capacity building continuously. That is very, very important at every level of people or workers. And then accountability and responsibility fixing, that is very, very important. In some of the cases I have seen, because of this problem, nothing is happening. Accountability and responsibility fixing is very, very important, and frequent review by top management. So I think with this is a complete presentation, and now we can wait for some questions, answer, or clarifications. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Gangopadhyay, for your detailed and very insightful presentation. In fact, I remember listening to your comments and seeing your presentation last time around as well. And I think there is so much to offer for a EHS professional. I think working on the on ground, at the shop floor, to take away from what you have mentioned in your presentation on safety management, especially on your specific focus on behavioral based concepts. And I think that's the key driver also for establishing a culture of safety in an industry. I think this is something even through our CIDM platform and all throughout last decade, we work closely with NDMA. NIDM has been our partner for such a long time. Even the Prime Minister's office, all of them, I think one issue which is common and which has been recognized as a key aspect to ensure industrial safety, at a decent level, is that the notion of behavioral concepts and the behavioral change which has been thought about as a factor which needs to needs to get modified in future as we aspire to be a country or an ecosystem where we are thriving towards zero tolerance towards industrial incidents or industrial events. Your very systemic approach in your presentation is so is so very well reflects the clarity which you, I'm sure, have prepared this very presentation. And while I was listening to you, I could see even in our chat box and in our question and answers there's some very positive and appreciative comments coming from our participants, who are almost 317 number, who joined us from all across the nation and even from our neighboring countries. I think there's not much to say. I mean, your presentation was so, as I said, simplistic and systemic that I thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm sure, looking at the comments, everyone will sign out wiser when we end this session. I think a lot of takeaways, and I'm sure we will, with your permission, we would share your the presentation, which will benefit our participants who refer to your knowledge even at later stage, whenever they want to reflect on what is the best approach to bring about or to implement behavioral based concepts in their organizations. Thank you so much. And also your emphasis on how the top to bottom approach is very important. I think the culture is somewhere injected at the top level, and that is where it penetrates into the shop floor. I think that is very important, and thank you so much for laying emphasis and echoing the fact that everyone needs to be together in this concept of ensuring industrial safety. You can't just leave it to certain people in the organization. It's everyone's job to contribute to ensure that industrial safety and minimum accidents can be achieved in an establishment or a facility. Thank you so much. Quickly, if I would like to do a quick check if Dr. Gupta is still with us, because we have a list of questions for Mr. Gangopadhyay as well as Dr. Gupta. Dr. Gupta, if that's okay with you, should we take some questions? Or whenever you are available, I would appreciate, meanwhile, I'll ask a few questions to Mr. Gangopadhyay, and eventually, if you could check with Dr. Gupta, then we could, some questions which are sort of targeted towards him. I know his risk assessment subject was very well received by the participant, and they have a few questions in that. Meanwhile,
Mr. Shodh, sorry to interrupt you. Before we actually go for this question answer session, as you are thinking for, as you are asking me to share this presentation with all the people, I'll be happy to do that. I'll be sharing this presentation to you, and you can question to give to all people, so that if they are even benefited by 1% out of this presentation, I'll be very happy. That I'll be doing. Okay.
That's so very kind of you. Thank you so much for your comment and those words, Mr. Welcome, Dr. Gupta. I think we had a very insightful presentation by Mr. Gangopadhyay, like we witnessed it last time. I think we have a list of questions and feedback pouring in from all our participants. So I thought I'll quickly check with you if you could take some questions, which we have a list of questions now. There is a question from Atul Srivastava. He asks, disaster management exercises involving district authorities and industries are good requirements for DMP to be effective. Are these exercises documented and lessons discussed in our country?
So can I reply?
Yes, yes, please go ahead.
Yeah. Actually, when we talk about disaster management plan or emergency management plan as per Factories Act requirement, we are having two different kind of emergency management plan. One is on-site, another is off-site. So on-site emergency plan means when some problem is there due to some malfunctioning of the system or equipment, and the effect is within the factory premises. So that kind of situation is as on-site emergency plan. And for that, occupier is responsible, head of the plan, head of the unit, occupier is responsible for that. Another kind of on-site, this emergency plan is off-site, for which district authority, district collector is responsible. In that case also, the concerned factories or the units are also responsible to some extent. In case of any mock drill or rehearsal being conducted by them, we have to depute our people also, we have to witness that also, and we have to send them required information from all the industries. When we are conducting this on-site emergency plan, it is not mandatorily required that the district officials are also to be invited, but it is always better if we can invite them also, some people, to witness, because their feedback is also very, very important. And any emergency, whether it is on-site or off-site, can be converted into otherwise also. Any on-site emergency can also be converted into off-site. So it is any time if our system is not foolproof or it is not that effective, so it can be converted into off-site also. So it is always better if we can involve the district officials also, whether it is fire department people, police, or even factory inspectorate. We can invite them for witnessing and offering their suggestions how to further improve the situation. It is always better, but it is not mandatory as far as this on-site emergency plan is concerned. When this off-site emergency mock drill is being conducted by the district authority, similarly, the industrial representative should also be present to see that what kind of disaster was happening and what kind of disaster may take place in our district, in and around our industry, and in that case, what should be our preparedness and how effectively it can be controlled.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Gangopadhyay. Question for Dr. Gupta from Devidas Gawas. So he asks, what are the most suitable and effective forms, ways and approaches and tools to educate community on disaster management, especially communities around industries? I think we've lost Dr. Gupta. Gangopadhyay, this also has a flavor of behavioral influence. How do you think the best way around industry? I think it's a very important.
Because initially you told me that this question is towards Mr. Gupta. I did not. I'm very sorry. I did not listen to this question.
I will repeat this question. What are the most suitable and effective forms, ways, and approaches to educate communities around the industries or industrial units on disaster management? What is the most effective way to train?
Yeah. That's very important question and pertinent. See, how we are doing in NTPC, actually, it is a regular interaction with the community people. That means maybe in any plant, in and around, maybe 20, 30 different villages are there. So we are chalking out a program that within these 12 months in a calendar, and we have to go to the different villages, maybe once in a month, or maybe sometimes 15 days in a month to different villages. We will talk to them regarding our plant activities, what are the different kind of disasters may take place, and then in that case, what are the fundamentals or what are the initial actions to be taken by them, not by the company. That will be done definitely. But what are the, in case of any, say, chlorine gas leakage, and it is creating an offsite disaster, then what they should do immediately on their part also. That means whatever, maybe sometimes some cloth or maybe some handkerchief they are having within them, immediately it should be soaked in water and they should put it on their nose and mouth. So at least some kind of relief they will be getting training before getting some medical assistance. So this kind of thing, and then what way they should run, where they should go, and then what are the different types of medical preparedness we are having through our own system and maybe through our mutual aid scheme. So where they can be given further treatment also. What are the different actions to be taken by them? What are the different resources we are having? What are the different contact numbers, emergency contact numbers? So that are also being given to them so that they can contact us immediately without any loss of time. So this kind of information we are having a checklist sort of thing. These informations are to be shared when we are going. And sometimes we are conducting even training or awareness program also for them. So this is giving results, definitely. So this we can do as a proactive action.
Gangopadhyay, in fact, you also, in your answer to this previous question, you've also commented on a question which was asked by Harindra Kumar Pachauri, who had asked कि अगर किसी व्यक्ति को क्लोरीन गैस से एक्सपोजर हो जाए तो उसको कैसे कंट्रोल में किया जा सकता है. तो आपने क्लोरीन वाला एग्जांपल ही दिया. Luckily, and I think that's very relevant. I'm sure that answer has been provided. There's a question from Dinesh S, who asks, disaster management comes under which act or rule? So Dinesh, let me tell you, there's a specific act which was in 2005, the Disaster Management Act, which was tabled in the Parliament and passed. The National Disaster Management Authority is a result of that act, which was passed in the Parliament. And I think, and this act was enacted, right now activated when the COVID crisis were triggered. This act, took over, and this was implemented, and which covers almost every aspect of the government. Then every ministry has a disaster management aspect to it. So once this act is implemented, all the industries then follow the disaster management act. So there's a specific act. Yes. There was a question from Kopal Seth. Dr. Anil Gupta mentioned about a Black Swan event, and she asked what exactly is a Kopal Seth asked what exactly is a Black Swan event. In fact, it's a very like its meaning, it's a very rare terminology. Like a black swan is a rare creature, so it's an unpredictable event that is beyond the normal situation, or which is beyond a normally expected of a situation, and has potentially severe consequences. So an event like is a black swan event. This is what Anil Gupta ji mentioned. Now, Anil Gupta ji is here. Anil Gupta ji, would you like to also throw some light, because it's a I think we have some people, students from the academy also. I think a black swan event really caught their attention.
Ji. You were very nicely explaining Ruav. I was listening to that, and that is correct. The same thing scientifically we say it maximum credible accident scenario. Like maximum credible accident scenarios are the scenarios where the probability is very, very low, but is still believed to be possible. Is still believed to be possible, though the probability is very, very, very low. Like हम बोल सकते हैं कि कोई एक्सीडेंट है तो 0.0001, but even वो 0.0001 accident probability accident, but if it takes place, it can be so catastrophic. Like this coronavirus pandemic, actually, earlier also we had some pandemics,
yes,
but those were not devastating as this was. So this was even it was rarest of the pandemic also. It was very different from the past pandemic. Pandemic तो पहले भी हुए हैं.
बिल्कुल. I think even the 9/11 को भी black swan event का नाम दिया गया था.
बिल्कुल, because expected नहीं था. अचानक जैसे we never thought. Actually जब चाइना में शुरू हुआ, then also people thought okay वो थोड़ा 1-2 कंट्री तक जाकर के रह जाएगा. Ebola was even a more deadly disease than coronavirus. Ebola में तो 2 दिन के अंदर ही death हो जाती, 3 दिन में ये it was more deadly, but it was contained to some locations and some routes. It did not spread that wide as this spread.
I think there was a genius, I would say, a very efficient emergency officer of West Midlands Ambulance Service in England, Mr. Steve Jones. And he once told me that about Black Swan events, and he was mentioning also, referring specifically to 9/11. He said that anything that 9/11 has changed the future of the world. So a Black Swan event can also be termed as something which changes the future. But the future is,
exactly.
Change.
Exactly. Now, in fact, we see that everywhere in our offices, in our businesses, things are changing, and there are certain changes which were temporary, but there are certain changes which are going to be permanent.
Absolutely. I think there is so much to learn, and I think you've triggered some very important.
I can add only one thing. I can add, very nicely explained. I can add only one thing. When we calculate risk matrix, so we take 2 things into consideration. One is probability and another is severity. So these 2 things are very, very important. Probability means how frequently it can happen, and severity means even if it is happening even once in a lifetime, but what can be the severity? If that is, normally we are calculating it under, as per 18,001 also, out 1 to 5 scale. If the severity level is very, very high, then we put it as 5. If it is very, very low, then we put it as 1. Similarly, probability. If it can happen once in a lifetime, we put it as 1. But if it can happen very frequently, we put it at 5. So if the frequency is also very high and probability and the severity is also very high, then it is 5 multiplied by 5. That means we get a matrix of 25, which is very, very severe. We have to get actions immediately and very effectively. But suppose either severity or the probability is very low, whether it is the probability or whether it is the severity, then the matrix will be 1 into 5. 1 into 5 means 5, which is not very serious. So this pandemic situation also is something like that only. If it can happen only once in our lifetime, we should not be very, very serious about that, and we cannot take all precautions every time, because it will be simply wastage of spending our money. It has come only, maybe some people are saying that once in 100 years time. So the severity is very high, but the probability is very, very low. So whenever we are calculating risk matrix, both the things are very, very important. Thank you.
Very well. Dr. Saab,
the
question, because this is something which has triggered a lot of thought process and deliberation in the community, especially in the ecosystem of industrial disaster risk management, the IDRM. Lessons learned from the Vizag styrene gas leaks. I think this is something which I would myself also do. I always put this question up for you. And I think the audience also wants to know what are the lessons learned and what are your takes on the Vizag styrene, and what are the lessons, clear lessons going forward?
Is it for me?
Yes, sir. I would like, yes, sir.
Yeah. See, if we strategically, if we look at the Honorable Prime Minister's call for disaster risk management, so we recall that the point 9 is basically that any disaster event gives us lessons, and for future disaster management, it is important that lessons should not go waste. But this has also been an experience that we draw the lessons from each disaster, then we forget. So Bhopal disaster also gave a lot of lessons, and every year on 4th of December, we organize some workshop and we revise those lessons. So this Visakhapatnam gas tragedy, Visakhapatnam gas release and which also led to threat to life to some people and other implications. One is that because it happened, not only this, a series of accidents happened during the period of unlocking the industry. So there are two things, as I was discussing during my presentation also, technological dimension and operational dimension also. And we recall that we had asked the industries to start operating with 50% of the staff, excluding the supervisory and managerial staff. So certainly some member of the staff were not there. So those and some people who had gone back to their villages or their native places, they did not come. So the kind of scenarios that was prevailing in many of the industries, I personally visited when I was in Gujarat. I have been visiting some of the industries also, and I saw that how they were trying to adapt to the new situations. So when you make changes either in technical terms or in operational terms, you need to revisit your operating manuals also. The same procedures sometimes cannot work. Maybe when the industries were restarting, the kind of checks which were required. So that puts a question that why each and everything was not properly checked before restarting the operations. And when we say check, usually you go with a checklist and you check each and every points in the machines, but you do not check. Sometimes you fail to check about the operational sites, whether earlier you had five trained manpower in this particular section, now you have only 2 trained manpower. So these things we tend to ignore. Any kind of checks you might have seen, even in airport, you find that when you go to toilets and washroom, you find a checklist is there. Usually the physical things are checked, not the human dimension or the operational things. And as we all agreed that operational and human behavioral dimension are very important contributions. So this is one angle. And then management responsibility, as in ISO also we say that the quality flows from top. So safety culture also has to flow from top. Safety culture is not only for the supervisors and operators. Safety culture should be an important agenda for the top management as well. And that is the reason we find different injury rate, varying accident rate in different companies, are different level of institutions. Many times the large industries, they take some of the large industries, they take safety as very important agenda, but in many cases people tend to take the things very casually.
Yeah.
So these are the kind of lessons. And not only this, the Chhattisgarh case, the Assam case, all has given lessons. But the important point is that how really we embrace these lessons for the new regime of safety that actually we are talking about.
Absolutely, sir. I think, as you very rightly said, it is all about learning lessons. So Bhopal made us learn certain lessons which we revise on the 4th of December every year. I'm sure there are lessons because shutting down of industries, what even General Bhardwaj mentioned, suddenly overnight this industries were shut down, and overnight they were waiting for an opportunity to reopen, and they did reopen. But that reopening, they did not follow certain protocols because shutdown protocols were not, some people were not even aware of, because it has never happened for process industries ever before. So when for a process industry to shut down altogether overnight and then again open up all of a sudden, I think there were certain protocols which were perhaps missed. Also because the industry workers were excited and keen to restart, and we triggered certain small incidents which had cascading effect and which led to leaks, and then even the nearby community in Vizag getting affected, and we lost few lives as well, which was really unfortunate. But then it did wake up the entire country. It was a wake-up call for the authorities, for the regulators, for the industries. And I think we've come a long way in these 9 months since May 7th, when the Vizag leak happened. And I think in those 10-15 days initially, they were back-to-back events, incidents. But moving on from then, I think things have really improved, and pretty much back on track. And I think the new lessons, the new learnings have definitely helped the industries overall. And we are getting comments from few very interested and enthusiastic participants like Atul Srivastava and Pramod Parekh. They are experts in their own way on this subject of they worked in disaster management exercise in Qatar Gas, like Mr. Atul Srivastava. And thank you so much, Atulji, for commenting here. In fact, he is also willing to offer his experience, in any way possible to the platform, which can benefit his fellow colleagues in working in the industry. Please, Atulji and Pramod Parekh, please write into us. We would definitely want to engage with our participants more deeply in times to come. Please feel free to write to us. You have on our registration page, you would have our email IDs. Please write into us to take those questions. There is one quick question which I hope I would be able to, yes. From Muhammad Yunus. He asked, behavioral aspect is very challenging to implement as the staff belong to various social, cultural environment and ethical backgrounds. Is there any game plan to address this apart from conventional BDS programs? Gangopadhyay ji?
Yeah, certainly. And a lot of programs are being conducted also nowadays in different industries to change the behavior pattern. And these are primarily responsible for creation of accidents. That is, even if we conduct a root cause analysis of any accident, we will find that it is absolutely clear, and not many accident inquiry in TPC has happened in recent years, through which we have very clearly says, and it is very, very clear that it is because of the behavioral aspect only. And the question is how this behavioral aspect can be dealt with, or it can be molded in effective manner. Actually, this sometimes we feel, sometimes we think that it is very difficult. It is not difficult. Actually, it is time consuming. If we are having that patience, and we are doing it in a systematic manner, we are designing a program, and accordingly we are trying to implement at the location, the result will come. As I told you during my presentation also, in the first year the improvement may be only 10%, whereas in a traditional concept, management gives some target, and this has to be achieved within 1 year. Maybe anything on safety aspects or parameters, this has to be achieved within maybe certain numbers of training program. It is given that 20 training programs have to be conducted for safety, or maybe 100% people have to be covered. That is done. We are happy. Within 1 year, 100% people have undergone training program on safety, on any aspect, particular aspect. Okay, fine. But we are not measuring, we are not testing, and in most of the cases I have seen even that the feedback system is also not there, that whether really due to these training programs conducted we have got some desired result. If we find that 100% result is achieved, then only I can say it is 100% achievement. If the result is nothing, result is only 10%, then I cannot say it is 100%. In terms of manpower, 100% people have undergone training program, so it is achieved. So that kind of mindset actually we have to change. So, but if we properly design a training program, and maybe it is only 25% or 10%, 15% even people have been covered, but we are getting the result out of this behavioral based safety program, then also it is achievement. 10% is achievement. That is why in behavioral based safety, we get the achievement of the result maybe in the first year only 10%, 15%. But next year it will not be just double, maybe it will be 200%. We will be achieving 30%, 35%. Third year, maybe it will be 70%. Fourth year, it will be complete. So it increases over the period of time. But in the first year, definitely it will be maybe in some time where the performance level is very, very poor, safety standard is very poor, maybe it's only 5%. But we have to be very patient, and we have to go as per the system module design, And we have to, every time, we have to interfere in the behavioral aspect for any incident happening, or not only incident or accident, for anything we are doing. We have to only go for the behavioral aspect of the people, and we have to see what is the problem, why this at-risk behavior has taken place for this, and then what should be the corrective action. It may take some time, even 2 years, 3 years time also. For certain cases of correction, it may take even 3 years time also. But that is the only sustainable development we can sustain in our industry through behavioral based safety training program only. I cannot further elaborate it over here, but it is a very scientific method with proper design and planning and its implementation. We can achieve over a period of time. But in the first year or first 2 years, the improvement will be not that much. But we have to still work with that. Maybe after 3 years, we will find that it's a very dimensional change is taking place. Maybe after 4 years, we will have it. But if we do it for 4 years very sincerely and honestly, and with all this proactive approach, then maybe after 5 years, we will stand on a certain kind of atmosphere, safety atmosphere, where we can be relaxed for 30 years, 40 years. So that is why it is always beneficial, and we should go for that. Thank you.
Rubab, you've got more questions?
Am I audible now? I think I got disconnected in between.
Yeah, you are audible now. Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. So thank you so much, Gangubaji, for your comments on BBS and sharing your rich experience also. I think as the comments are pouring in from different from Amit Tuteja, I think is the Amit Tuteja. I think he's been a great contributor to the CIDM platform also. I believe that post-facto environmental approval review was another major issue with respect to Vizag accident. Thank you, Amit, for that comment. Dogre, very good panelist with such rich knowledge. Glad to be a part of the 3-day series. So yes, we are getting a lot of positive comments and feedbacks for the two leading presentations we had from Dr. Anil Gupta and Mr. Gangopadhyay. I think the list of questions just goes on and on. We would, I'm sorry, participants, we really skidded beyond the time limit we had, and please keep, stay tuned. Come tomorrow as well. And as you know, tomorrow and day after, we have some leading speakers who will be throwing more light on this subject of industrial safety. Tomorrow we have Shri Prakash Patil, BTech IIT Bombay partner of Prestals, who will be talking on on-site and off-site plan. Then we have Dr. Sunil Pandey, Director TERI, talking about hazardous waste safety management. A very exciting presentation he does. Then Dr. Ashish Mittal, again, one of our star speakers, CEO of Occupational Health and Safety Management Service. He will be talking on occupational health, wellness to productivity. I think we are up for a very exciting second day. And let me remind all our participants who are still over 300 in number, like we've been mentioning even during registration, that you have to attend all 3 days of this online training program to be able to qualify for a certificate which would be issued in your name, along with the presentations of these experts. And as Mr. Gangopadhyay mentioned, he stepped up and mentioned that he would love to share his slides with all the participants who joined us today, so that, and he also said even 1% of that could benefit the people who are with us. He'll be more than happy. And thank you so much for that commitment and that support, Mr. Gangopadhyay. It means a lot to us. Thank you so much. I think this is all we had for today. I think we can't take more questions. We are really afraid. Hopefully, sorry I'm afraid we can't take any more questions, but then we will try and keep these questions with us. We'll send it to our speakers for them to answer, and we'll send it back to you. In fact, we'll also take these questions up tomorrow and day after if possible. But I can promise you that, there's a lot to learn in next couple of days, on the second and third day of this OTP. So I think on that note, Akhil, Sanjeev, I think we can sign off. Yes? Right. Thank you so much, Mr. Upadhyay, for being with us.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sood, for inviting me as a speaker for such a prestigious program being conducted by such esteemed organizations like FICCI and NIDM. I'm really honored. Thank you very much.
Thank you. No, I think the pleasure is all ours, sir. I think we as I said, we are at the end of the first day, and I think we've all ended up being wiser than what we were a couple of hours back. So I think all thanks to you and Dr. Gupta, and also the the broad remarks made by General Bhardwaj. I think although his presence, I think all of this is possible because of him, because all these stakeholders in the ecosystem, I think he is one of those common source of inspiration for all of us in the ecosystem, be it FDMA, NIDM, FICCI, Economic Advisory Council to the Prime Minister. I think Mr. Lavendu Mansingh, who's the former Secretary Government of India, a member of our board, Dr. Muzaffar Ahmed, former member NDMA and a member of CIDM board, and also Mr. Rao, Rajeshwar Rao, from the Prime Minister's office. I think they have really contributed a lot in making this OTP possible, and this partnership between NIDM and FICCI work. I think they've given the much needed inspiration and guidance to us to really do what we are doing today. So on that note, ladies and gentlemen, I think we will all see you tomorrow at 2:30 p.m. With the first presentation, first of the three presentations. I think I've shared all the important points. Anything, Akhil, would you like to add before we end? I think anything? Yes, they have to log in using the same email ID.
Yeah, they've got to use the same email ID, which they use while registering. Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Please make sure that you use the same email ID so that it is easier for us to track the attendance. We track the attendance based on the email ID you use to register yourself. So the link will remain on all 3 days. Please use the same email ID you used today to sign in tomorrow and day after. So thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Until we meet next.